Imagine waking up covered in lice, walking through knee-deep mud just to drink water shared with pigs. Your job? Break your back in the fields for a loaf of bread that might kill you. That was daily life for a medieval peasant, and it gets worse. Most peasants never owned land. They worked it, sunup to sundown, but it belonged to the Lord. If they stopped, they starved. If they complained, they were punished. And if they ran, that was treason. Bathing? Maybe once a year. Soap was a luxury. Clothes were worn until they fell apart, patched, repatched, and handed down. Lice and fleas weren't just common, they were constant. Hunger was a daily enemy. A bad harvest didn't mean less variety on your plate. It meant no plate at all. You'd eat bread made from ground acorns or bark, and if you got lucky, you might steal an egg. And forget about rest. Sundays were for church, not leisure. And even then, you'd better show up or risk public punishment. Stocks, whippings, fines, sometimes all three. Education. That was for the priests and nobles. Most peasants couldn't even write their own names. Knowledge was locked away, literally, in churches and castles. Marriage wasn't about love. It was about survival. You married young, often by 15. Children came fast, and many didn't survive past 5. If a child lived, they worked, as early as 6 years old. Sickness was everywhere. No medicine, no doctors. Break a leg, you're done working. Catch an infection, say goodbye. Even childbirth could be a death sentence. And justice? That belonged to the Lord too. A stolen loaf of bread could mean losing a hand. A rumor of rebellion could get your entire family executed, publicly, as a warning to others. And if you thought there was a way out, there wasn't. Born a peasant, die a peasant. Social mobility didn't exist. You couldn't work harder and earn more. You couldn't rise in status. You were locked into a system that fed off your labor and gave you nothing back. Even your faith wasn't yours. The church controlled what you believed, what you feared, and how you lived. Question it, you were a heretic, and that meant torture, or worse. Seasons ruled your life. Winter brought cold and starvation. Spring meant back-breaking planting. Summer scorched you in the fields. Autumn brought harvest, but never enough. No holidays, no health care, no help. Just mud, hunger, pain, and obedience. But here's what's truly haunting. They didn't know it could be different. No dreams of freedom, no visions of a better world. Just the church bell, the whip, the frostbitten mornings, and the sound of your stomach gnawing at itself. And even in death, there was no escape from inequality. The rich were buried in stone tombs with prayers and candles. The peasant, a shallow grave. No name, no marker, forgotten. Yet somehow they endured, generation after generation, beaten down but never quite broken. Why? Because survival wasn't a choice, it was the only thing they had. Even your thoughts weren't safe. Speak out of turn, question your Lord, or whisper discontent. That could earn you a visit from the bailiff, or worse, a trial by ordeal. That meant walking across hot irons, or plunging your arm into boiling water to prove your innocence. If you healed clean, you were blessed. If not, guilty. And don't forget the taxes. You paid for the land you didn't own, the crops you barely harvested, and the church that watched your every move. Tithes, grain, chickens, whatever they wanted, they took. Peasants were punished for poaching animals in the forests their ancestors once roamed freely. Caught hunting a deer? That wasn't theft, that was death. Meanwhile, the nobles feasted on meat, wine, and honey. They wore silk while you shivered in wool. Their castles were stone fortresses. Yours was a wooden hut that leaked in the rain and stank of rot. You didn't live, you survived. Even fun was controlled. You couldn't just take a break. Festivals were few, and when they came, they were soaked in religion and rules. Drink too much? Punished. Dance too wildly? Sinful. Forget the saint it was for? Blasphemy. You didn't laugh freely. You didn't dream loudly. You didn't plan for next year. You planned for tomorrow. And even that felt uncertain. Weather could destroy your life in a day. One flood, one drought, one cold snap, and everything you worked for vanished. Your Lord didn't care. The church told you it was God's will. And still, you were expected to keep going. And the irony? You were the backbone of the entire kingdom. Without you, no food, no roads, no war horses, no castles. But you had no name, no power, no future. Just calloused hands and a lifetime of silence. You were born into mud and expected to die in it. No medicine, no mercy, and no myth of a better life. You didn't know kings lived in castles dripping with gold. You didn't know the world stretched beyond your village. You didn't even know how many days you'd get each year without pain. And if you broke, if the weight of it all finally crushed you, no one noticed. No one came to help. No one remembered. The nobility wrote the history. The priests told the stories. The peasants, they just disappeared. Swallowed by time, buried in fields they once plowed, names forgotten, lives erased. But here's the part no one talks about. Some fought back, quietly, desperately. They faked illnesses to avoid labor. They stole crumbs to feed their starving children. They whispered forbidden prayers. They taught their sons to run, not to kneel. And when one of them snapped, when a peasant rose up and dared to strike a lord, burn a tax record, defy the church, they were crushed, brutally, publicly, hung, drawn, quartered. Their bodies displayed as warnings, their families punished for generations. But the fire never fully went out, because for every peasant who bent the knee, there was one who looked up and thought, "This isn't right." They had no armor, no books, no voice, but they had something else. They had something else, endurance, a kind of quiet defiance that didn't scream, it endured, through famine, through beatings, through a life designed to keep them crawling. They passed it down in whispered stories, in songs sung by the fire, in the way they taught their children to look strong even when they had nothing. And every time the whip cracked, every time the taxes came, every time a child buried a parent far too soon, they survived. Not because they were weak, but because survival itself was their rebellion. The lords ruled the land. The church ruled the soul. But the peasants, they ruled the future, just by refusing to vanish.